The first time she started hammering my phone after that month of silence. I was sitting in a booth at Benny's Diner off Route 9, with a plate of eggs going cold and a coffee that had the personality of cardboard. My phone lit up so bright it threw a little square of light on my forearm. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Text stacking like planes on a runway. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Are you actually serious right now? I flipped the phone face down. The waitress, a gray-haired lady who calls everyone hon, slid by and topped me off. She nodded at the phone like it was a crying baby. You gonna grab that? She said. I already did for 2 years, I said. I'm taking breakfast off. She snorted and floated away. Outside the window, the parking lot was all pickup trucks and salt stains. Lake County in late March. Gray sky, potholes like fresh craters, everyone ready for a season that refuses to show up. That morning, I remembered the last thing Emma ever said to me in person. Don't you dare text me again. Not ever. We're done. You hear me? Done. She said it with both palms up like a crossing guard stopping traffic, and I respected the sign. Now the sign was gone. And before anybody says I'm playing games, no, this wasn't a chess match. It was me finally putting the pieces back in their box. If that opening already sounds tense, stick with me. The wild part hadn't even started yet, and back when it did start, I didn't understand how deep the rabbit hole went. I thought I did. I didn't. We met 2 summers ago in a grocery store aisle that smelled like peaches and floor cleaner. I was comparing prices on pasta sauce. $2.29 on sale if you signed up for the loyalty card, and she was on her toes reaching for the good kind on the top shelf. You know the jar with the label that looks hand-drawn, like small batch grandmas are stirring vats with wooden paddles in a barn. Can you grab that one? She said. The basil one. I'm 6 feet on the nose with arms like a guy who carries HVAC units for a living, which I do, so I snagged it easily. Basil kind, I said, handing it to her. Powerful choice. She smiled like she was in a toothpaste ad and said, What makes you think I won't return it if it's not? I told her if she hated it, I'd buy her a replacement and let the store security camera footage stand as a binding agreement. I got a laugh. We chatted. She said her name was Emma. She worked in a dental office at the front desk, and she had a cat named Pumpkin who didn't trust men with baseball caps. I was wearing a Guardian's cap. She leaned in like she might take it off me herself, then left it there and wrote her number on the back of my shopping list. First date was coffee at a place that roasted their own beans and had chairs made out of reclaimed church pews. She told me all about her hometown in Indiana, her mom's insistence on keeping every holiday ornament since 1999, and how her dream was to live close to the lake, but not so close that she had to shovel sand out of her car. She asked me what I did for fun. I told her I rebuilt a 2008 Ford F-150 in my garage and watched too many Browns games for my own health. She said she liked a guy with calluses, which felt like the oddest sentence I'd ever heard over a latte. It was easy for a while. I'd swing by after work. We'd cook pasta and pretend it was the fancy kind when it wasn't. She'd accidentally take my hoodie and return it 3 days later washed in detergent that smelled like sunshine commercials. I'd wake up to texts like, morning smiley face, and then 2 months in the text evolved. They showed teeth. One night in September, I fell asleep watching a West Coast game that went too late because those guys think they're in another universe. When I woke up, I had 8 texts from Emma, spaced like marks on a ruler. Hello. Are you up? Why didn't you say goodnight? Okay. Wow. Okay. Then a photo of Pumpkin blinking with the caption, even he thinks it's rude. I called her. Hey, sorry, I passed out. The game went to extra innings. Must be nice, she said, to be so comfortable you forget the person you're allegedly dating. I didn't forget you, I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I fell asleep. It's what people do at 1:15 in the morning. You know what else people do? She said. They care. The word hung there like a wet towel. I wanted to argue it, to stack examples on a table like exhibits. Instead, I said, okay, I'll text goodnight, even if I doze off. She exhaled like a referee granting a point. Thank you. The next week, same show, different act. I was on a roof in Parma, fixing a unit that thought December had arrived early when my phone buzzed. I checked it while kneeling next to a box of coils. Where are you? From Emma. On a roof in Parma. I typed. Heat pump repair. Pictures, or it didn't happen. She sent back with a winky face. I laughed and snapped a picture of the unit with my steel toes in the shot, asphalt shingles, and a skyline of strip malls. Sent it. No reply. An hour later, she wrote, "I guess that roof was more interesting than answering." I tried calling. It went to voicemail. That night, she said, "I just needed you to say you missed me." That's all. I said I do. And also, I was holding a live wire earlier. I like to keep my hands on the job and off the obituary. The next morning, she sent me a meme about bare minimum men with a thumbs up emoji. I didn't love being lumped in with a meme, but it wasn't a hill I wanted to die on. We kept going. What got strange wasn't that she wanted attention. Everyone wants to feel like their first draft, not an afterthought. What got strange was the scorekeeping. I'd send a long message at 6:48 a.m. "Good morning. Hope your impatient cat didn't smother you in the night. I'm grabbing coffee, and then I'll swing by to help with your leaky faucet after work." She'd answer at 9:12 a.m. with "okay." Then at 10:19, "Actually, I might be at the gym. Let's see." At noon, nothing. At 1, in VM, I figured the faucet out. It just needed attention. Later at 6, if I hadn't followed up, she'd text, "Wow, no response? Imagine if I treated you like this." I'm not perfect. I can be slow. Sometimes I leave my phone in the truck while I haul equipment. Sometimes I nap too hard on Sundays and wake up believing it's Wednesday. But if I'm measuring effort, counting texts like steps on a watch, I was getting my cardio. We'd have evenings where it was all easy again. Tuesdays with tacos, her telling me about the dentist who insisted on being called Dr. Mike by himself in third person, me telling her about a furnace that literally blew a puff of dust like it had a sense of humor. We'd watch a game and argue about whether bunting ever makes sense. Emma would lean into my shoulder and whisper, "Don't fall asleep yet," and I'd say, "Not a chance." Then I'd blink and it would be 1 a.m., and I'd shoot up like I caught a pop fly. "Good night. Good night, good night." I'd text, just in case. "Who are you yelling at?" she'd mumble. "My future self," I'd say. On one Sunday in December, it all went from awkward to absurd. I had a job in an old church downtown, the kind that looks like a ship flipped upside down. The building manager and I were inside the boiler room when my phone buzzed. It was 6:09 a.m. "You didn't text good morning," Emma wrote. "I'm at work." I type with my thumbs and gloves. Left at 5. I guess saying good morning would have been too hard. It's 6 a.m. It's morning. "Emma, I'm literally underground next to a boiler that hisses like a snake. Can I call you after?" "Don't bother," she wrote. "You already didn't." I showed the building manager. He was pushing 80 with eyebrows that could hold snow. "She a morning person?" he asked. "According to the texts," I said. "I got married in 68, he said, tightening a valve. I learned 2 things. 1, ask before you throw out the wrong Tupperware. 2, if somebody needs a parade every Tuesday to feel okay, they're going to run out of confetti." I laughed. I should have listened harder. Around then, I started to notice she never started a conversation. Never. I'd test it like a bad scientist running a questionable experiment. I'd wait until noon to see if she'd say, "Hey, how's the ductwork?" Nothing. "Idikova." She'd respond with gaps big enough to park a school bus and then accuse me of ignoring her. If I took 15 minutes because I was wrestling a condenser unit in a place with Darnell from my crew, she'd send, "I see how it is. You're busy." That "busy" in quotes felt like an indictment. Darnell is a solid guy. He's got a wife who texts him grocery lists and photos of their toddler covered in yogurt. He keeps a picture of the kid in his wallet like it's 1994, and it always makes me smile. One afternoon, we were packing up in the warehouse, and my phone buzzed again. "Who's blowing you up, Romeo?" Darnell said, nodding at my pocket. "Emma," I said. "You two okay?" he asked. "I think so," I said. "She's mad I didn't text while I was napping." "How long was the nap?" he said. "An hour and a half." "How long is the grudge?" "Still going." He whistled. "That's a rough exchange rate." I'm not saying I was some saint. I'm a pretty average guy. I forget to thaw chicken. I buy the wrong dishwasher pods and then act surprised when the plates look like they got dusted with chalk. But I showed up. That was my thing. I showed up to help her move, to take her mom to the airport when Emma had a morning shift, to stand in line at the DMV with her because she swore it helped to have someone to complain to. I texted. I called. I used emojis, even though I feel like a raccoon stealing a shiny object every time I scroll for them. Then the January storm hit and the city turned to a snow globe. I got stuck out by the lake finishing a call and decided to stay at my buddy Chris's place instead of white-knuckling the highway home. I texted Emma at 8:22 p.m. Snow's a mess. Crashing at Chris's to be safe. Call you in the morning. She wrote back at 8:23. Okay. At 8:27. Pictures. I sent a shot of a drift up to the mailbox. At 9:07. I hope this isn't an excuse. I called her. What excuse would it be? I said, standing by Chris's sink watching him shake salt into a pot of pasta like he was warding off demons. I don't know, she said. You tell me. Emma, I'm with Chris and his wife. They're watching some cooking show where people cry over casseroles. We're not exactly out on the town. So you're choosing them, she said. I'm choosing common sense, I said. I'll call you at 7. You know what? She said. You do you. I usually do, I said. I hung up, and Chris handed me a beer, then paused. You want this, or should I grab you a soda? Soda, I said. I'm driving in the morning. Everything okay? He asked. She wanted pictures of the snow, I said. Well, he said, gesturing to the window, we got plenty. We ate, we watched the show, we went to bed. I woke up to a long message from Emma at 5:42 a.m. Funny how you can't text when you're with your friends, but you expect me to be available when you decide to be. I wrote back. I told you I'd call at 7. Still will. At 6:15, don't bother. At 6:16, actually call me. I called at 7. It went to voicemail. I left a message. Morning. Roads are better. Swinging by yours at 9 to help with the shelf thing. If you don't want me to, say the word. At 8:58, she texted. Where are you? At the curb. Okowo. When I went in, she had a look like the cat had confessed to something terrible. Listen, she said, arms folded. I can't be with someone who thinks silence is neutral. Silence. I said. You mean sleeping? Or driving? Or working? Any of it, she said. If you cared, you'd make it happen. You want me to text from a ladder? I said. I can, but OSHA and my mother would both have notes. I'm tired of excuses, she said. I held my hands up. Okay, tell me what you want in plain language. No guesses. She inhaled like she was about to start an engine. Daily check-ins. Morning, lunch, after work, before bed. If you say you'll call, you call. If you're running late, you send a heads up. If you're out with friends, you drop a line. If you're napping, you say you're napping. If you wake up in the night, you say you woke up. I blinked. If I wake up in the night, you want me to text? Yes, she said. How else am I supposed to know I matter? I wanted to say there are other ways to prove that someone matters. Showing up, fixing the shelf you've been putting off, bringing soup when they're sick, remembering to ask how their dentist appointment when even though you find teeth talk unsettling. But I realized we weren't talking about proof anymore. We were talking about hunger. Her hunger was bottomless and my arms weren't long enough to carry it. We tried to compromise. I set reminders that buzzed my wrist like a training collar. Morning, noon, night. Some days it was okay. Emma would reply within a minute and send a selfie with pumpkin looking like an orange loaf. Other days, she'd leave me on read for hours and then say, wow, ghosting me now? I'd scroll up to where I'd sent on my way to your place with groceries 3 hours earlier, then put the phone down because arguing with the son about whether it's day or night has limited returns. One Saturday, we drove to a flea market in a high school gym that smelled like cinnamon and old tape. She pointed at a mirror shaped like an oval and asked if it would look good in her apartment. I said, sure, if you like seeing yourself in soft focus like you're in an 80s music video. She laughed and we bought it. In the car, she turned the radio down and said, I know I'm a lot. We're all a lot, I said, in different units of measurement. Just don't leave me, she said. I'm not planning to, I said. How can I be sure? She asked. I'm here, I said, tapping the steering wheel. I'm driving you in your disco mirror home. That night, I missed the bedtime text. Fell asleep reading about a compressor that kept shutting off. Woke up at 3:11 a.m. to a wall of messages. So you don't care? Good to know. I should have listened to my gut. You never actually show up when it counts. You only text when it's easy. I stared at the glow, the way the blue light threw my ceiling into a different mood. I typed. I fell asleep. I am sorry. I'll call you at 7. At 3:14, don't. At 3:15. Actually do. At 7 o'clock I called. Voicemail. I tried again at 7:15. Voicemail. Finally at 10, she picked up. What? She said. I'm on my way with breakfast. I said. Bagels. The kind you pretend you don't like, and then eat two of. She exhaled, a little puff of a laugh sneaking out. Fine. When I arrived, she took the bag, set it on the counter, looked at me, and said, We're not working. What does that mean? I asked, leaning on the doorway. It means this is uneven, she said. I'm pouring and you're sipping. I'm pouring, I said, tired of my bones. You just don't notice because you call it not enough. I shouldn't have to ask, she said. You also shouldn't punish me for sleeping, I said. She crossed her arms. You can go. Okay, I said, if that's what you want. It is, she said, eyes on the bagels like they were the ones who'd hurt her. I stood there. There are moments where you fight. You make a speech, throw everything on the table, and see if any of it can be glued back together. And there are moments where the room is telling you it's time to leave. I heard the room. I said, take care of yourself. She shot back. Don't text me again. Not ever. We're done. You hear me? Done. She raised her hands, halting traffic. I nodded. Okay. I walked down the hallway that smelled like somebody was always making stir-fry at noon, took the elevator, stepped out into air that felt raw. I put my phone in my pocket and went home. I expected to crumble, and somehow I didn't. I cleaned my kitchen top to bottom, and for the first time in months I did it because it felt good, not because someone might give me a grade out of 10. For the first week after, it was quiet. I taught myself how to make a decent omelet without turning it into yellow rubble. I started running in the mornings again, the kind where your breath looks like you borrowed a dragon's. I fixed the wobbly table that had been driving me crazy. I checked on my sister while she studied for her nursing exam. She lives over in Euclid and runs on coffee and determination. I drove my dad to the hardware store and listened to him debate screws like he was a senator. I didn't text Emma. I didn't block her either. I just let it sit. Second week, I slept better. I caught a Cavs game with Darnell and Chris. We ate wings and pretended we weren't keeping score of every small improvement we felt. At halftime, Darnell said, How's the quiet going? It's not quiet, I said. It's regular. Regular feels loud when you haven't had it, he said. Third week, I started a night class to finish the certification I'd been putting off. 2 evenings a week in a community college classroom that smelled like dry erase markers and hope. We learned about airflow and efficiency ratings. I liked it. I liked the part of me that likes learning, which I had put in a closet so I could keep checking my phone. Fourth week, my phone buzzed. Emma. It was 8:12 a.m. on a Thursday, and I was walking into work with a thermos that leaks if you look at it wrong. Hey, she wrote. Random question. Do you remember the name of that taco place in Lakewood you liked? I stared at the screen. It wasn't out of character for her to ask for info, like I was Google with emotions. I considered replying with El Camino. Then the next text landed. I miss you. Then, I know you probably hate me, but can you at least answer? I put my phone down. I pulled it back up. I wrote, El Camino. I didn't hit send. Instead, I put my phone back in my pocket and went to load the truck. At lunch, I checked again. She'd written, Okay, I guess you don't care. At 2 p.m., never mind. I figured it out. It's El Camino. Thanks for nothing. At 6:30 p.m., I didn't mean that. Sorry. Today was weird. I didn't reply. It felt odd not to, like I was leaving a doorbell unanswered when the person could see me through the window. But then I remembered her last words, the hand stop, the don't text me again. I was doing exactly what she said to. Next morning, I hope your day goes well. No reply. Afternoon, I drove by your favorite diner. I thought about the time you got pumpkin pie in July. I almost laughed. Then, I'm crying. This is stupid. Saturday, I adopted a second cat. Bad idea? Tell me the truth. Sunday, where are you? Monday, why aren't you answering? Tuesday, are you actually serious right now? By week 5, the messages were essays. She wrote about her mom asking if she was okay, and her saying yes, and then her mom saying, no, you're not, which I admit is a classic mom line. She wrote about Pumpkin ignoring her and her taking it personally. She asked if I could come over to fix the mirror we'd hung, said it tilted like it was looking down on her, which, okay, made me snort. I didn't answer. Not out of coldness. Out of clarity. I had finally understood that my phone wasn't a leash. It wasn't a healthy part of us. It was the part that turned us into employees auditing each other's shift reports. People ask, why didn't you just tell her all this earlier? I did. In small pieces. In jokes. In serious voice. The truth didn't get through because the truth wasn't a single sentence. It was the whole pattern. At work, Darnell saw me glance at my screen and put it face down. "She back?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "What's the play?" he said. "No play," I said. "I'm sitting on the bench." He nodded. Sometimes that's the only winning move. The diner morning I mentioned at the top happened around then. That's when she started sending the blow-by-blow. "I can't stop crying. My chest hurts. I'm outside your place." That last one got my attention, but when I looked out the window, there was no one parked by my curb. She meant, I realized, the old place in her head where we still belonged to each other's schedule. Not literally outside my house. The thought got me to breathe again. That night, my neighbor Maria caught me in the hallway. She's a nurse who works nights and wears Crocs with little charms. She said, "Hey, I heard someone banging on a door on the 3rd floor. Everything okay?" "I'm on the 2nd, I said. "Good," she said. "Somebody upstairs needs a hug or a hobby." I smiled. "How do you know it's not both?" "Because I'm a nurse," she said. "It's always both." A week later, Emma called. Actual phone call. I watched it ring and thought about picking up. I thought about our best moments. The times we were a team against the world's small annoyances. Traffic cones, broken elevator buttons, the grocery store that rearranges the cereal aisle 4 times a year like it's a test. I thought about her laugh when she put that mirror on her wall and said, "Now I look like a movie star." I thought about the boiled-down version of us I still admired. 2 people trying to build something that stayed up when the wind blew. I also thought about waking up to anger because I didn't text at 2 a.m. and how that rewired my brain. I thought about the way my day became a series of alarms set to prove I wasn't a slacker in my own love life. I thought about how quiet and strong my mornings had felt lately, how I'd run by the stadium, watch the sunrise bounce off the lake, and feel like a person who was allowed to be at peace. I let it ring out. She left a voicemail. "It's me," she said. "Obviously. Listen, I'm sorry. I said things I didn't mean. I meant them at the time, but I didn't mean them forever. I'm not great at this. I get scared and I need you to pick up. Please. I know you're probably mad. You have every right to be. I know I told you not to text me ever again. That wasn't fair. I'm asking you to ignore that. I'm asking you to ignore me telling you to ignore me. Just call me." I made a grilled cheese and ate it over the sink like a bachelor cliche. I washed the pan, set it on a towel, and checked the voicemail again out of some strange compulsion. Same words, same spaces where I could hear her trying to wrangle her breathing into something steady. Then a text landed, as if the voicemail didn't scratch the itch. "Please." I didn't answer. I didn't block her. I just let the message exist. I was learning the skill of not picking up every heavy thing handed to me. In the 2nd month, I took overtime jobs and saved for a weekend in Pittsburgh to watch a ball game. Sat in a park I'd driven past 100 times and never stopped at, called my grandma, and listened to a story about the first radio she ever owned and how she'd park it on the windowsill and turn the dial so even the neighbors could hear. I went with Maria to a community fundraiser, the kind with a raffle and a bad microphone. I stood next to a cardboard box full of tickets and told jokes into a speaker that had the clarity of seashell. People laughed, not because I'm funny in a famous way, but because I sounded like any guy who's seen a lot of furnaces and a lot of minor nonsense and survived both. At one of those raffles, a guy around my age asked me how I was doing. Not the polite kind, the real kind. I said, "Better." He said, "You look lighter." I didn't know how heavy I'd felt until I started to set it down. Emma's messages kept coming, but they changed shape. They got sweet in a way they hadn't been before. "You were the only one who got my jokes about the dentist who says say out to himself in the mirror. Pumpkin sits by the door around 6. He misses you. I miss your stupid truck. I miss your coffee that tastes like burnt toast. I miss fighting about bunting." Then the pendulum would swing, and I'd get, "Wow, you don't even care I'm crying. This is cruel. You're punishing me for having feelings." And then back to, Ignore that. I am tired. I didn't eat lunch. Long day. I didn't reply. I read some of them, and some I didn't. I'm not a robot. I'd see 3 bubbles pop up like a weather alert, and my chest would do that weird thing it does when you're waiting for a noise to stop. But I kept steering my day back to my day. I remembered little talks we used to have that felt promising in a way I miss. Being honest, there was a version of Emma that made me want to be sharper. The one who teased me into taking a class I was dragging my feet about. The one who said, "You should rebuild that workbench." It's sad. I rebuilt it, and she was right. It was great. The problem is that version only showed up between tests I could not pass. I didn't tell many people the details. My sister, sure. She came over with homemade lasagna and a look that could disassemble a man if he deserved it. She said, "You seem calm." "I'm not grading myself every hour," I said. "Did you explain that to her?" she asked. "Many times," I said. "Some truths don't translate." "You're not going to answer her?" she asked. "I don't think so," I said. "You're allowed to choose peace," she said. "It's a menu item." In April, Emma showed up at the rec center where my friend runs a weekend basketball thing for kids. She knew I sometimes helped with setup. I hadn't told her I'd be there, but we all move in circles that overlap. She walked in, scanned the place, saw me hauling a crate of orange cones, and made a beeline. "Hey," she said, breathless like she'd sprinted from the parking lot. "Hey," I said, setting the crate down. "Can we talk?" she asked. "I'm in the middle of something," I said. "Maybe after the drills." "Okay," she said, hand in the sleeves of a sweatshirt too big to be comfortable. "I'll wait." I ran the kids through layups. I watched a boy named Dion sink 3 in a row and clap for himself. I like that. After 45 minutes, the kids broke for water, and I walked to the bleachers where Emma sat. She looked smaller. Not weight exactly. Presence. She stared at the floor, then up at me. "I was wrong," she said. "About the way I talked to you. About all of it." I waited. "I thought if I could keep you looking at me." "You wouldn't look away," she said. "I know that makes no sense." It made sense in my head. "I tried to tell you I was looking all along," I said. "You were just measuring my stare by your stopwatch." She nodded like she had expected that sentence and had it coming. "I started a thing," she said, waving her hand. "Not therapy or whatever. Just this group where people talk about how they act in relationships. And there was this exercise about silence. Sitting in it. It was brutal. Silence can be loud," I said. She laughed once. "It can be a whole stadium." She wiped under an eye. "I'm not asking you to get back together. I know you're done." I didn't answer. "I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry," she said. "And that I know I told you to never text me again." That was pride. It was also fear. "You know the rest." "I know some of it," I said. "The rest is yours." "I keep thinking about all those times I got mad you didn't text while you were sleeping," she said, looking genuinely embarrassed. "Who even says that out loud?" "You weren't the only one talking," I said. "I said stuff I didn't love either." "You were mostly patient," she said. "More than I deserved." She took a breath. "I hate that I made you feel like you had to schedule your love." I shrugged. "I learned things. About what I can't do. About what I can." She nodded, stared at the scoreboard like it had answers. "I'm going to leave now," she said. "I'm not going to keep texting." I said what I needed. "Okay," I said. She stood up. "If you ever want to talk." "I know," I said gently. She looked at me a second longer, like she wanted to memorize something for later, and walked out. I watched her go and felt not triumphant, not angry, not even relieved, just aligned, like how a door finally swings clean when you fix the hinge. She still sent a few texts after that. Old muscle memory is strong. "I saw your truck near the lake." "Was that you?" Pumpkin knocked the mirror off the wall. "He hates it too." "I found your sweatshirt. Do you want it back?" The last one I answered because I'm human. "Keep it or donate it." She wrote, "Okay." Then a minute later, "I'm sorry again." I didn't respond. The spring turned to summer the way it always does in Ohio. Slow, then all at once. I kept running. I finished the certification exam and passed with a score that made me nod appreciatively at myself in the truck visor mirror, which is a level of self-high five I recommend. I drove to a little lake an hour away on a Sunday and watched a family try to keep their picnic blanket from becoming a kite. I grilled chicken and, for once, got it right on the first try. On a Friday night, I was at a backyard with those string lights everyone buys when they want to pretend they're in a magazine. Chris's wife put a bowl of chips in front of me and said, "Are you dating?" "No," I said. "Do you want to?" she asked. Eventually, I said, "I want to be something besides an apology first." She nodded like she understood exactly. I'm not here to paint Emma as a movie villain. She wasn't. She's a person who thought love meant constant proof, and I'm a person who thought love meant dependable presence. We were trying to build a table with two different sets of instructions. When she told me to never text her again, I took her words seriously. When she started writing me every day a month later, I took my words seriously. That's all. Last week, I saw her across the street by the farmer's market with the guy who sells corn like it's gold. She looked good, healthy. She was laughing at something the vendor said. She didn't see me. I could have crossed over. Said hello. Asked about Pumpkin, who I presume still sits by the door at 6 like a train schedule. I didn't. I bought strawberries and a loaf of bread that cost $3 more than it should and went home. People like endings that sound like headlines. Man finds himself. Woman learns lesson. Life isn't a headline. It's a bunch of Tuesday afternoons where you choose whether to answer a text, take a walk, call your dad, fix the hinge, or stare at your phone like it's a slot machine. I used to pull that lever all day. Now I pick up a hammer sometimes. It's louder, but the noise leads somewhere. Every so often, my phone still lights up with her name. It's rare now. Once a month maybe, like she forgot, and then remembered and couldn't resist saying one last thing she forgot last time. The last text I got was yesterday. It said, "I heard you passed your exam. Congrats." I stared at it for a minute and thought about typing thanks. I didn't. I put the phone face down and marked a new job on my calendar. The line of the day kept going straight. You might be waiting for some transcript of me telling her off or her showing up with a monologue and a bouquet and me turning away dramatically. Sorry to disappoint. I left the drama to people who get paid to cry on cue. I chose something less cinematic and more durable. I chose to let the messages sit. I chose to stop defending my sleep like it was a crime. I chose to stop writing essays to prove I cared. I fixed a shelf. I learned about airflow. I made good eggs. The last time I did answer, months ago, it was because she'd asked a practical question. I'm having trouble with the AOC. There's a rattling. Is it dangerous? I wrote back, shut it off. Call a tech. Probably a fan blade. Don't stick your hand in there. She wrote, okay, thank you. Then, 10 minutes later, I wish we could talk. I didn't reply. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that the lives we want often start with a string of things we choose not to do anymore. Sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night now, I still reach for my phone automatically. Muscle memory. I put it back on the nightstand. I close my eyes. In the morning, I run down to the lake, watch the light come up over the water, and think about how many different ways there are to say good morning without typing it. The coffee brewing, the air warming, the world doing its quiet work. I go to work. I come home. I live in a day that has the right amount of sound in it. Maybe she learned something. I hope she did. No sarcasm. She once said she wanted a love that kept the volume up. Maybe now she wants one that measures in hours spent building, not seconds spent replying. Maybe she found a person who thinks texting at 2 a.m. is romantic instead of weird. Good luck to both of them. As for me, I'm okay. Better than okay, most days. I've got a truck that starts on the first try, a job that leaves me pleasantly tired, a sister who passes exams, a dad who debates screws, a neighbor who knows all the gossip in the building, and a Saturday morning that is mine, and a phone that doesn't run my life. That's the lesson I got out of all this. She wanted proof? I loved her every hour. I learned to love my hours again. And those messages she sends, the ones that say she's upset, I don't reply. The irony isn't lost on me. She used to be upset I didn't text while I slept. Now she's upset I don't answer when I'm awake and busy living. There's your headline. If you need one, she was mad I didn't write. Now she's mad I don't respond. The difference is I'm not auditioning anymore. I'm already cast as myself.